Following our tale of Spider-Man in an alternate universe known as the Ultimate Universe, we're gonna need a big bad villain, aren't we? And what happened to Norman Osborn at the start of our tale? Last time in Ultimate Spider-Man, his powers were granted and he began to learn how to be the hero Spider-Man. But how was the rest of the city taking this turn of events? Well, J. Jonah Jameson wasn't exactly taking it lightly, because he saw a guy running around in his underwear and assumed that he had to be a menace. So he wants as much information as he can get on this Spider-Man. While this is happening, Spider-Man is off inventing some new technology to go with his whole Spider-Man image. Basically, he created some web shooters using his father's formula for a molecular adhesive. It's strong, it's sticky, and he can shoot it out of his wrist thanks to some web shooters. The next day at school, Harry finally returned to school after losing his father in a freak lab accident, and as Peter is checking in on him, his new spider sense begins to go off. And following that, there's a loud boom! Fire and smoke begin to spew out of the school as Peter runs through the hallways trying to figure out what's going on. And it's Harry who seems to know as he's shouting, "Help me! He's here!" Using that as his entrance, Spider-Man arrives and he bolts into the building to see what exactly is happening. And with the sprinklers above raining on his head, Spider-Man calls out to whoever did this, and a very large man in a torn cloak stands in front of him. "As a hall monitor, I'm going to have to ask you for your hall pass." And the man's eyes glow. He begins to hurl fireballs at Spider-Man. He bounces off of the walls, alerting our villain to the fact that this is a fire hazard, and he throws the mysterious villain into the lockers. The villain gets up and begins to swing, continuing his silence as Spider-Man continues his jokes, until eventually the villain slams Spider-Man into a wall, launching him out of the school. He continues to squeeze Spider-Man, keeping him from breathing, and then he lands in a park and he jumps again. As they're leaping through the air, his cloak begins to come off and Spider-Man sees a big green goblin face, which growls the word, "Parker." Spider-Man looks at him. "Who are you?" And instead of responding, he throws Spider-Man down into the streets below. He begins to panic. How could I survive this? Is this the end already? Until it dawns on him. His webbing! He whips it towards one building and then another building, begging for this to work. And then like a giant trampoline, it propels him back into the sky. He cheers out, excited that it actually worked, and then he thinks to himself, I wonder if my other idea will work. And he whips onto a nearby building, swinging into action and landing square into the Goblin's back. As he gets a couple of shots in, the Goblin reaches up, grabbing his head, and he throws him back into the ground. He throws out two more thwips, but the Goblin dodges, and it attaches to the nearby helicopter. While they both stand there staring at each other, another problem has presented itself as the Goblin now sees the looky-loos who have joined the fight, and he begins to sprint off towards them. Spider-Man tries to attach his webbing to the Goblin, but he has too much sheer strength, and he pulls Spider-Man right off of the wall. He then throws his cloak into the air with Spider-Man still attached, and he leaps up to the level of the helicopters. His hands begin to burn brightly as he prepares to throw more fireballs at them. And as Spider-Man gets between the Goblin and the helicopters, he shouts, "Stand down! I won't let you hurt these people!" But that's the moment that the officers in the helicopter take their shots, peppering the Goblin's chest with bullets. Spider-Man calls out to them to stop shooting as the Goblin holds his chest, all bloodied, and he looks at Spider-Man. "Parker!" he shouts as he leaps at him, but Spider-Man jumps over his head, dodging him, allowing the Goblin to fall into the bay, where he falls deeper and deeper into the water. He turns to the police, telling them that they have to save the guy if they can, but instead the police open fire on Spider-Man. He dodges and he rolls out of the way, getting out of sight, before changing back into Peter and going back to the school. He stumbles out of the school, claiming that he was under a chalkboard, and Mary Jane rushes over, giving him a huge hug. Harry decides to tell everyone who that was at that very moment, and he informs the group that it was his father. Norman Osborn did not die in the lab. He changed into that thing, and now he's after Harry to kill him. As the police bring Harry in for questioning, Peter can't help but wonder, what's to come next? I know this story is a bit short, but don't worry. These stories are about to get much, much longer as we dive deeper into the lore of Ultimate Spider-Man. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date with our weekly series of Ultimate Spider-Man, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.